All right. Good afternoon, gentlemen. It is Saturday, August 21, 2021, and welcome back, gentlemen. Good to see you both.
It's good to be back. It's good to be here at the Pastor's Roundtable one more time.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, I like that coat, Doc. Dr. Henry, that's a nice jacket you got on there, brother.
Man, you know, I think you were looking into my closet today, man. We almost got the same thing on, man, just a different shade.
Mercy. All right.
Oh, Pastor Wade, we can't hear you, my friend.
Oh, because he was muted.
He has me muted.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, y'all didn't send me the memo on the jacket. You know, I told you all about that.
Your mama's gonna be mad at us, man. I see her in the chat saying blessings.
She on early.
Beautiful island of Trinidad. Oh, she's up high. Let me get her back down low.
Yeah, she's on early because she said she ain't gonna miss this, and now I messed up again.
Oh, that's right. Because it was her you were getting in trouble with for.
Yeah, she was constantly telling me, why the other host has jackets, you don't have a jacket on.
Well, if you didn't stay so busy and could have got on here earlier, then you would have seen. But they keep working you. They're working you.
This is what happens on the Pastor's Roundtable. I'm going to tell you, this is what happens. You know, we get into it. We're real.
Listen. It ain't working me. It's the time difference that's working me. I'm out here on the West Coast today, and it's like, oh my goodness. I'm gonna stay I'm gonna stay in the Central Time Zone because this is too much.
Yeah. So how is Cali, man? What are you doing out there?
It's very cloudy, man. I took the opportunity to take a break, and I came to visit my goddaughter. This was a family that became very dear to me when I pastored out here, and they asked my wife and I to be the goddaughter of their godparents of their daughter. And she just graduated this year from 8th grade, and so we just felt it'd be a great joy to come and spend the day with her. So we packed up the house, Anthony in tow, and we came out to California, and we did some family time with the family, you know. And so I thought it was interesting that this weekend was our family show. So God knows what He's doing and preparing us for the show. So we praise God.
So I got to ask this. So how was the flight? How'd you feel flying? COVID and all that stuff? Because you flew, right?
I flew. Yeah, we flew. We flew. I'm comfortable with flying. I have my sanitizers. I sanitize the seat and the chair and all that. I sit comfortably. The Lord has blessed me to travel so much that I get good perks. So I got upgraded. Unfortunately, the family didn't get upgraded, but they had a whole row to themselves. So we did well. We did very well.
I know already. I can tell you already. John is going to get all over you for you not upgrading your wife. I know it. I can feel it. I can see him back in the green room right now. I see him getting excited over that. Matter of fact, April is probably going to be the one to jump on you for that.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
this is going to be a good program today.
My wife already told me she don't want to be close to a lot of people, so she didn't mind having the whole row to herself, reading her book, watching her stuff. So I'm not going to fight it. At least I was able to give her some room in the back there.
Good save, Sister Wade. Good save. All right. So very quickly, let's greet some guests out here, you guys. Let's go through, see who we've got in here today.
Well, hey, I see my good friend Cheryl Johnson. She is so glad she's here. She has been absent for a while, so it's good to see Cheryl Johnson here.
Yes, all right, Cheryl Johnson. I see Samantha P. Barkley once again. That's right. Samantha, always good to see you, Sam.
And then we also see Jennifer Sharon, Sister Jennifer Sharon. That's right.
She is.
Nice to see her
from
again.
Dalton,
Definitely.
Georgia. What?
Julian
Johnson. What's up, Julian?
Is that Dr.
And
Johnson?
Simone Hines.
Julian Johnson.
Come
on. I tell you.
Pastor Hines.
We got our regulars here with us. I'm so happy to see Yavetta Hodges from St. Louis.
Yes, St. Louis.
Glad you're here. And Rebecca Boney is here with us. Ian Callender. Valerie Singleton is here with us. So we're just so happy that you're here with us. Stephanie Scott.
There's Stephanie. Yes,
Now listen, Natalie Barkley. We got to give a shout out to Natalie Barkley
from Albany, and that's Albany, New York, I believe.
Yes,
New
she's
York in the house.
Just up there, just making some great, doing some great things there in Albany. So
hey, we have the SDA Express on with us today.
Yeah. I was looking at that.
Yeah.
That catches your attention right there. The SDA Express. I love it.
And I don't know who this is, but this is Lee Memorial SDA Church. Mississippi is in the house.
Mississippi is in the house. Yes.
All right. So very quickly, I know our time is getting away from us already, but brethren, last week, how did it go? What'd you think?
Man, last week.
There was crickets. What in the world?
Oh my goodness, man! Last week, come on, yes sir. Hey, listen, man, I know we're going to talk about the show, but let me tell you, we got to do a program on Adventist lawyers making a difference. Oh, yeah. And that's going to be coming up. And come on, he knows what I'm talking about. So that's going to come up in the next season. Adventist lawyers making a difference. And let me tell you something. I had one the other day. Praise God, we rebuke the devourer in the name of Jesus. I'm telling you.
All right.
Awesome.
Hey, look, we got to get Kimon and Julian on here too one of these days. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to beg to get on their schedule because they're big time.
I'm telling you,
they're doing good stuff. Good stuff.
So last week, what did we talk about last week, Pastor Paul?
You forgot.
I just asked you a question. I just asked a question. That's all.
I asked the question first.
I'm gonna let y'all stew on that one
because you forgot too already. That's the advantage of asking the question first.
When we finish the show, we move on to the next show. These things be coming cold.
Chaplaincy, y'all. We talked about chaplaincy last week. Come on. Chaplaincy. I just reminded Pastor Paul about chaplaincy.
Tell your wife I said thank you. Yes, we had two extraordinary chaplains doing great work in chaplaincy. If you did not get a chance to check that out, we learned that chaplaincy does a whole lot more than I think what often comes to mind when we talk about chaplaincy. And we've got a lot of young people that look into want to do ministry, but might not want to be a pastor of a church, but yet pastoring is something that they are called to. And what we learned last week is that chaplains are in fact and indeed pastors. They are pastoring. And they are doing it on a very high level, a very professional level. They are well trained, well skilled. And if you missed last week's show, we want you to go to the website, go to back here in the Facebook archives, and go take a look at that. I think that you will be edified, you will be blessed as you take a look at Adventist chaplaincy today, especially in the COVID environment.
Right. Listen. As you shared there, I just want to say that because we are such a traditional we have such a traditional mindset in our church. People don't realize how multifaceted our church is. So when we shared about the chaplains, there were a number of people who shared with me that they didn't know that about chaplains. They didn't know that about the chaplaincy, and they have such an appreciation right now about the chaplaincy ministry. So I just praise God for the opportunity to share, to help open minds, to help our folks understand that ministry. And even I think a lot of our pastors got a new appreciation for the chaplaincy.
That's right. It's a vital role.
Absolutely.
Listen, I think this is the time, Pastor Paul, where we're asking our viewers to do something.
Oh, that's right. Because we didn't do it. Because I didn't even do it. Mercy.
That's right. Come on.
Today I was able to do it. I knocked it out of the park today. I got about 10 of them done.
See, that's why I love working with you guys. Hey, look what we got going on there. Mama. We got a coat coming on there. All right. Listen, we need you guys to share. You have done an awesome job in the past. So we want you to go. This is going to be a phenomenal episode today as we talk to our guest. This is an international episode today. But we need you to share it, and we want you to go ahead and do it now, because you're going to be so wrapped in this conversation as we get going, you're going to forget. So I want you to go ahead and hit the share button. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button. That's going to help it show up in more people's feeds. But copy and paste that URL, send it to your best friend, send it to your worst enemy, send it to your ex-wife, whoever you need to send it to. Go ahead and I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. Send it out wherever, because listen, you are going to be blessed by today's conversation on the family and the pandemic. The family and the pandemic. Your grandparents, whoever, make sure that they do that. Copy it. If you're on Facebook, tag somebody. That means type their name and they come up, and it's gonna be a little pop-up window. Just put it in the chat and they will be tagged in that. We need to do a demo on how to tag people, because I think there might be a good part of our audience that just doesn't know how to do it. Might not even know how to share. I think we got some feedback, Roger. You were telling us the other day, somebody said, I just learned how to share. So yes, we've got to be able to make sure that our audience knows how to do that, because this is going to be helpful for and edifying to everybody. All right, gentlemen, so that's enough. We need to hop in today or we're going to lose time. What's on the table today? I think we already spilled that beans just a little bit, but Pastor Wade, what is on the table today, sir?
Well, listen, because we were in this pandemic, in the lockdown of the pandemic, because we're still in the pandemic, but because we were in the lockdown of the pandemic, we got to know the people we were sharing the space with. And some of us looked into the abyss at times. Some of us were wondering how we're going to make it. Some of us were excited to hang out with those who shared the space with us. And we're talking about our families. We really got to know our families, got to really see the underbellies of our families. And so today we want to take a little moment to share, talk about some things that we learned while we were in that lockdown. Some of us might still be in a lockdown, but we're just so excited to have our guests come today to share some insights and even probably share some keys or some things that can help us moving forward, just in case this happens again. So we're just so glad to have our three experts with us today here at the Pastors Roundtable. Dr. Henry, tell us who is at the table.
Yeah, my finger slipped. I got him in early. My bad.
Yes, you did.
Hey, no, that is fine. Listen, you already see their names right there underneath their picture. But I want to tell you, they have experience in dealing with family and different aspects of the family. We have here the Nixons, Dr. Nixon, April. Let me tell you something. April and John and April, they're doing a phenomenal job, not just here in the United States, but they are international family life gurus. That's right. They know about the family. And I'm telling you, they have a lot of programs, a lot of presentations. They just have a lot of stuff so that families can be better and they can go stronger. And so we're just so privileged to have this dynamic duo. And not only are they dealing with families, but they're also the pastoral leaders of their church. And they're leading a church there in the DMV area. And so it's just a privilege to have them on here with us today. And then we have all the way across the waters. This individual is powerful. Let me tell you something, powerful. Yeah, let's get the music playing. This is Dr. Augustus Lawrence. He is the family director of the South England Conference. And let me tell you something, he's also international. He has done presentations. He has done research. He is, in fact, one of his strengths, he does serious research on topics. So when he speaks, he's just not talking about, well, this is what I feel, this is what I think. No, he's talking about topics based on significant research. And of course, his major book is the Word of God. He is a preacher as well, just a person who loves families. And we're so glad to have Dr. Augustus Lawrence all the way from the UK here today.
Awesome. Listen, we are excited to have both of you with us, or all of you with us today. We're going to have a quick word of prayer, and then we're going to let you just greet the audience before we jump into our questions for today. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this opportunity. Again, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So let's start with John and April. We did not take the time to go ahead and give everybody your full bio and tell everybody all your business and what you're doing and where you are and all that. So we're going to give you, see, John is a preacher though, you guys. I can't give him the full time because we know what preachers do. And he's got but his wife is with him. So that should help. John, we're going to give you 49.9 seconds. And we're going to give the extra time to your wife, but you guys just go ahead and greet the audience, share with them anything that you'd like to share with them about where you are, what you're doing, anything you'd like them to know, a shout out to mom and pops, whatever it is. The time is yours. 49.9 seconds. Go. Got to hear you though. Oh, wait. Is that my fault? Yeah, that was my fault. My bad.
Okay, I was about to say that couldn't be me because I'm, locked and loaded, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, we're John and April. We are relationship coaches. We love doing it. We got a lot of stuff happening, but I don't know, a show. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? What do you want to say, babe?
No, I'm just saying you're saying it. You're
okay, I'm saying it all. All right, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're glad to be here. We're happy. Thank you for inviting us. This is going to be fun. We're going to enjoy this today.
Yes.
Awesome. Dr. Lawrence, anybody with a doctor and all of that stuff that Dr. Henry said about you, I can't give you a time limit, but we want to give you an opportunity to greet our audience. You've come a long way over many oceans and billows and whatnot. So listen, take the time that you want to greet our audience today, however you so choose.
Hey guys, I'm excited to be here today. I'd like to remind you though that I am from West Africa, Liberia.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Don't forget that. Don't forget that. I'm not an English fan. I was born in West Africa. On one Christmas Eve, I was on the way to a play, and I heard the sound of the gospel being preached like a mile down the road. When I got there, it was the last day for the evangelistic meeting. In fact, the appeal was made, and it was almost the end of the program. And as the appeal was made, I entered the building, and I responded to the appeal. Never heard the message.
Wow.
Only the appeal.
Wow.
Wow.
Never heard the message. Just the appeal.
Hey, that'll preach. The power in the appeal.
1981. Heard it appeal. And I'm still here. Love family ministry. In fact, I've come from a very large family. My father had 18 children. Hallelujah. Don't tell me how he got 18.
Wow. That definitely deserves music.
Hey, here's the appeal. Here's the appeal. Come on now.
Wow.
I'm glad to be here. Just helping people find Jesus is all I'm doing. Single, married, once married, whoever you are, just getting to know you and to find Jesus and to live happily. That's all I'm doing.
Hey, that's a word, preachers. If you got to skip the sermon, go ahead and skip it. Just don't skip the appeal. Preach that.
There you go.
Appeal,
right.
My Lord. Good stuff.
That's right.
My goodness.
Well, listen, again, we are so thrilled and excited to have all of you with us today. And we're going to go ahead and jump into our questions for the day. We're talking about the family in the pandemic, stressors, and finding coping mechanisms for those stressors. So I want to come out of the gate and ask, what are some of the general issues that you have noticed from the pandemic that have been directly affecting family life? We've been in this thing for about 15, 16 months now. And each of you, because of what you do and your reach into families and family life, we know that you've seen some things. We want to know, what are some of the things that you have seen, some of the issues that have been arising specifically because of the pandemic or connected to the pandemic that have been affecting families. Let's start with Dr. Lawrence, and then we'll move to John and April.
Well, this is the first worldwide viral threat in the lifetimes of most people, certainly in my lifetime. And this crisis has damaged the health and well-being of, countless individuals, crushed economies, led to an extensive period of uncertainty and about the future. So a lot of people, young people, old people, are very fearful about the future. They are very uncertain about the future. So there's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, I don't know what's going to happen, loss of jobs, loss of health, not just of themselves, but of the family, extended family members. worried about my father, people that are worried about the parents, people that are worried about the uncles, the aunties, the children, what's going to happen. So from economics, it goes to health, to fear, uncertainty about the future. What exactly is going to happen? People don't know. And so they are panicking. In fact, I was reading a paper the other day, and it says that over the last 14 months, doctors have dispersed a lot of pills for stress and anxiety. It's gone up, numbers have gone up, all because people are just fearful, just anxious about what's happening. But those are some of the things that I have encountered with people with whom I've come in contact with. And one more is also with the young people. A lot of young people are having conversation with themselves, not sure where life is going to head. A lot of them are discouraged. Some of them are having conversation with themselves in terms of being suicidal.
Wow.
And so it's a huge situation we have, not just here in the United Kingdom, but it's worldwide.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole lot I think families have had to bear. And the truth is this, I think, John, April, in the church, even before the pandemic, I think most of us as pastors, we've had families that have been struggling even prior to the pandemic. But this thing has come along. How has the pandemic, or have you seen that the pandemic, has it exacerbated some of those issues? Has it made some of them easier? What have you seen?
I think it's been a lot worse. I mean, so April's a middle school teacher. I'm a pastor, and that puts us, I think, in touch with certain age groups of people all the time. And I think the first thing that became clear was how important church has been in terms of helping us to get through some of these things. And the fact that you couldn't go to church physically anymore, we started seeing higher numbers of anxiety and depression, especially amongst young people. And you'd be amazed to see middle schoolers, guys, who are dealing with like anxiety and depression because they're stuck in their house all the time.
Wow.
It's crazy. So we've had a lot of that. I would say the numbers are way higher with the people that we've encountered in that regard because of the lack of some of the things that we were having before, stuff that we probably took for granted for years. We didn't think was even that important. Now I think everybody's saying, man, I really wish I could go to church in person again because it made a difference.
Yeah, I would also say couples have really gotten to know each other.
That's true too.
You know,
Okay.
like the true self, which I think is actually, we're laughing, but it has caused conflict within the home. Things have come out. You know, when you spend most of your time at work, you know, some of those things that are I mean, you could just say habits or different things that you do aren't as prevalent or open.
Maybe not as pronounced.
That's what I want to say.
Maybe we don't notice it as much.
Not as pronounced as it would have, as it was when you were leaving the house every day and not actually having to be with each other, you know, all the time.
Right.
And we've had couples come and express that. I'm with. This is too much. I can't be together this much.
Right. I need some time away.
I need some time away.
Wow.
Yeah, that's been a big deal.
So
I like that.
I would like to add this because it's almost not really a fair question, right? Just to put all of this family stressors over the last year and a half on the pandemic alone. And I this wasn't in our notes, but the reality is, here in the United States, we've seen so much social unrest during the pandemic. Crazy marches and protests out in the street. You've seen the whole election cycle that was amped up during the same time. You've had so many things, and so this anxiety, this depression, and it has to have had some impact on the family. We want to invite, as we go through this as well, our audience. If you guys have questions that you would like to pose to our guest as well, to feel free to throw them in the chat. But yeah, those are just some things I think that I just want to kind of reflect what we've heard. So we've heard depression, anxiety, suicide rates have been up, and especially those things in young people, that young people seem to have been affected. It sounds like we're also hearing that couples have been like, yeah, y'all always on. I'm not used to being on top of me like this 24/7. I'm not used to having, the kids that can't go to school. So the kids are in the house all the time now.
Yes.
All of those things. Roger, Dion, anything else you want to add to that question as follow-ups before we move?
No,
I think the next question kind of follows up on what you're saying, because we're talking about the impact that this pandemic has had on the families, and we know that it has impacted. COVID crisis, it definitely has affected all families, but not all families were affected the same way, right?
Okay.
So just to lead into the next question, so we know, your pastors, over the conference, and a lot of plans for families, and again, we praise God for the ministries that both of you all have, just trying to lead families and strengthen families. But during this pandemic, not only have we seen the impact on families that we minister to, but I know I have some witnesses here that we are not immune to this crisis as well, right? I mean, there's some things that we've gone through. So, one of the things that we have on this program, this ministry, we want to be transparent, right? We want to be real. And so, what are some of the stressors that you have experienced as we are in this pandemic? Those potent stressors. What are some things that you've experienced? And we'll go with what we'll do. John,
can I just start
first? Dr. Lord. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me start by saying I love my wife and I like her. We like. I think we actually like.
You don't have to say that in order to give your answer.
No, I think it's important.
You don't have to say that
because I think that the thing I was most surprised about the pandemic to start with is we know we like each other. We get along. There's a lot of different things we like to do together, and yet we ourselves were struggling at the beginning of the pandemic with all of this time together. And I think what Pastor Paul mentioned earlier has a lot to do with it too. It wasn't just the pandemic. It was a lot of uncertainty. We weren't sure about what the virus was going to do. We had all these people that were dying. We had friends. I had a friend 42 years old who passed away in Atlanta, who was pretty good health, who ended up getting the virus because he was taking care of his father, ended up dying. And when stuff like that starts happening, now we're all like, super scared about whether or not we're going to be safe. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff happens with, the different marches and things, like you said, racial awareness starts going up. And then we had the election stuff. So all that stuff together, I'll be honest with you, the fact that we couldn't leave the house, I think it made us maybe start to attack each other a little bit in some ways about stuff that really doesn't matter. And all of a sudden, this person that I like so much, we were struggling to be in the same place for that period of time. That was hard. And I know if we were dealing with that, a bunch of people had to be dealing with the same thing, because a lot of people don't like each other to begin with. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah, the first couple of months it was very difficult.
Yeah, we had to come up with ground rules and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
We did. We actually had to have, and I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but we had to have a family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to talk about respecting each other's space.
Yep.
Knowing everybody needed time away and to give them that time. And it was like after that family meeting, things changed.
Mm-hmm.
But for like 2 months, like March, right? It was like April and May, or like, it was very difficult for us.
Yeah, it was.
Even though we feel like we're together all the time. Like this will be great. But we dealt with some things in the beginning, and we had to talk about it. We actually had to sit down as a family and discuss the things that were happening and what we needed to do to fix it.
The main thing April and I dealt with personally between the two of us, because of course we have our children who are teenagers, and they were going through some stuff too. And so that was a totally different monkey wrench that you threw in there, which precipitated the family meeting, the necessity of the family meeting. But she and I had to have a conversation which went something like this. We are not the enemy. Like, I am not your enemy. You are not mine. Like, we should not be like let's band together to fight against that. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to fighting against each other.
That's real. Yeah.
And I think that helped us too. But there was a perspective change that needed to happen because we were just kind of going through life and doing things the same old way. And I think we needed to really understand something different is happening here. This is something unique that, as Pastor Gus just said, we know about the Spanish flu and the different things that happened however many hundreds of years ago or whatever. Most of us had not lived through anything like that. And so for us, this was so different. I think we had to say something different is happening in life right now. We can't just go through life the same exact way. We have to step some things up, which I guess we'll get to later on.
Yeah,
We're talking about
it really did bring something else. And I don't mean to prolong this, but we were getting in arguments because of how much I was telling John to wash his hands.
I mean,
like
it was like super.
I mean, so when you talk about pandemic, like specific to pandemic, I was like crazy.
She was watching.
I was watching
pandemic stuff.
I was on
24/7.
CNN all the time. News. He was getting so irritated.
It was on her phone, on her laptop,
like,
on the
TV.
Just
stop?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? She was sharing all these news stories with me. I mean, it's almost like the pandemic took whatever your thing is that you're kind of obsessed about, not really obsessed, and it turned it up like 100-fold. So we became crazy in certain areas, and it made us almost unbearable to be around. So it was bad.
Yeah, he was very annoyed with me.
Wow, I can feel that. I remember early on going to a gas station and pumping gas, and my wife offering me some hand sanitizer. And John, I made the mistake of saying, "No, I'm good."
Oh no.
Nah, bro, that was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got in an argument because I made John wear gloves when he was getting the gas. So
I was upset about it first, but I started doing it. I would wear gloves every time to make sure that my wife knew that I was being safe. But at first, I was like, "Come on."
After the meeting,
I like the comment in the chat. The pandemic police. I like that. Pandemic police.
That's exactly right.
That's right. That's what you wrote.
Well, I wanted to say that in December last year. So I had COVID, but I didn't have respiratory problem. I was at home, very, very ill. My wife also had taken ill, and she was in the hospital. In fact, she spent like 6-7 weeks in the intensive care unit, and they had to have operation on her heart. The COVID affected her heart, and at one point, the doctor called me to say that, "Look, Augustus, your wife has deteriorated quickly over the last 24 hours." In fact, it was on a Friday he called me. I was lying there sick, couldn't move, had to treat myself, taking all kinds of concoction. Well, he called me and said, "Look, your wife has deteriorated and this is bad news. And where she is right now, where we have her right now, anything could happen."
Wow.
And he said to me, "The next 24 hours are crucial. So expect to hear from me. When you hear the phone, please answer it. It will be from me." You know, I was anxious, man. I was anxious, so anxious and fearful. And I just didn't know what to do. I was ill, but also I was worried and fearful. And I was saying to myself, you know, what's going to happen to her? What's going to happen to my young son, who is also asking me questions about God, about church, about what's happening in the world? What am I going to say to him? And so the Friday evening, he didn't call. Sabbath, he didn't call. Sunday, he didn't call. Monday, I got a call. But this time, the call was from the nurse to say that your wife is still here in the ICU, but she's not as critical as she was 2 days ago. And we're just calling you to let you know the situation. We will brief you as time goes on.
Hallelujah.
Wow.
That was an experience that I had that left me feeling anxious, feeling fearful, asking God, you know, what am I going to do if she goes? What am I going to say to our son? But that brought me to the reality that life is just fragile, you know, and I made a commitment. I made a commitment during those days that I will try my hardest to make as much friendship, not just with my wife, but with everybody else, to get reconnected with those who I've lost contact with, just to get to know people again. I've made that commitment that I would try my hardest to reconnect and restore relationships that have been shattered or confused over time. But it was a very fearful time for me.
Wow.
Pastor Gus, I don't know if you remember,
as
you invited us to do something for you during that time.
I'm sorry.
That's correct.
All right. So Pastor Gus invited us to do a marriage retreat for his conference for, I think, young adults there in England. And he sent us an email when the time was coming and we were about to, it was a couple weeks away. And he sent us an email and told us that he and his wife had both contracted COVID and that we'd have to postpone. And we immediately started praying. Remember, April, we were praying every night. And we were having family worship every night, calling your names in prayer. And I remember texting you. You told us that you guys were out of the hospital and you were doing better and everything. We were very worried for you because at that moment, we didn't know. Whenever we found out somebody got COVID, we didn't know what was going to happen. A person might have ended up dying, and especially when you told us how serious it was for your wife. So we were very happy to hear that she came back and that you were fine.
I want you to know we appreciated that very much, and it happened at church. We went to church to do a program, and just a handful of us, but somebody there was ill.
Wow.
From home, son was ill, and thought it was a joke. So the person came to church and spread the virus to everybody else who was there. And 2 days after, the person called to say, look, I'm sorry that I was ill. I'm sorry that I didn't say or tell you guys.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Member, a friend, a church member, a disciple at church.
Wow.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Listen, as you were talking there, I was thinking about us who are professionals. I'm not saying that we are counselors, but we have learned how to help people with anxiety, help people with going through their situation. And what I'm hearing from you is that we ourselves are even attacked by some of these same things. As professionals, what can you help us as professionals who are listening, pastors who are listening, members who are listening, in terms of what some of the signs we should have looked for or should be looking for as we're going through this pandemic here with some of these things? Remember, we are the ones who should know. What are some of the things we need to believe when we see them?
Well, one of the things, Roger, is that over the last few months, I've had a hard time with some of our people because, number one, most of them refuse to accept the reality of this virus, to know that this thing is deadly, and it's tough. But those who, are willing to listen, and one of the messages I've sent out there is, look, listen, this thing is real. This thing is not funny. This thing is not it's not a trick. It's not any conspiracy. This is a real illness and people are dying. Even though we have faith in God, even though we believe in prayer, we still need to be wise. We still need to be wise. Take all the precautions. Listen to the scientific advice. Social distancing, wearing a mask, washing their hands. And some people think that this is funny. But I'm going to say here on this platform that, we need to do what is right and leave the rest to the Lord. If you ask us to take the vaccine, I'm not forcing anybody. I'm not compelling anybody. I'm saying, for me, I have taken it. And if you ask me my opinion, I will tell you my opinion. Be wise, follow the instructions, and do what is right.
I wonder if I may just kind of follow up to the previous question about the stressors. I'm wondering if that might be some tension in some families where you've got one spouse who is, taking it very seriously. And the other, I mean, even beyond just the washing hands piece, right? Maybe it's the mask or the even getting vaccinated or whatnot. Because I think we all know that in our group, in our very huge but small group, we have very polarizing perspectives on things like getting immunized, getting the shots. So those are definitely, I think we're seeing. I know I'm seeing it in where I am down here in South Florida, and you guys know Florida is the hotbed of the world right now. The United States is a hotbed. I mean, I don't know if India has finished their they were doing some spiking quite a bit a month or so ago. But the United States has still got just about everybody beat in terms of that. And I'm down here in Florida, and I know I've got families. I'm pastoring families where one spouse never getting immunized. It's, kind of, the implication is of the devil, and we're not following health message. And the other spouse is, I got poked. I'm good. So those are stressors that sometimes are creating issues upon families where there were already lots of issues. And so that's what we're really trying to get into now is in the face of all these issues, what are going to be some of the coping mechanisms that we have to deal with that? So Roger, I don't know if you were all the way in on that question or not. I'm sorry, I'm taking your time. Let me throw it back at you there.
No, we see what I wanted to kind of help transition to was the fact that we have a lot of things out there that we have done. As you were sharing there, I was thinking about families who before the pandemic were fighting about where to go eat, how to spend money, how to do. Then the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wait a minute, you're not washing your hands, you're not putting your mask on, all these other, and what you're hearing, Let's turn the corner here. You have practiced, you have shared, what can families do to make it through? What could families do before that was working that maybe could help them now that's working? John and April, why don't you start us off with that?
Yeah, so we've noticed a couple of things. So I kind of want to highlight some of the bad coping things that we have seen happen, and then maybe we'll talk about some of the good strategies as well. But as a pastor, I've had some of my church members who've come to me to tell me, Pastor, I've had a really tough time during this year and a half, and I slipped back into my drinking, or I've slipped back into my drug use. It's happened a lot. And they say, I need you to pray for me and all that kind of stuff. Of course I do. We talk a little bit. I encourage them. And then they come back and they tell me they've been trying some of the things. And now they're back to where they were before and they're doing better, all that kind of stuff. I wanted people to understand that we are human beings and we are dealing with real stuff. And sometimes when it gets real bad, we go back to old habits, things that we used to do that gave us comfort, that made us sort of detach from reality. And there are things that people do. I think some of the positive things you could do is something like play video games or go outside for a walk or something like that. I don't think that there's any room for self-destructive behavior. Even though it does take you away from the realities of what's going on temporarily, it ends up being worse over time. So you don't want to do that. Obviously, we know that. I think our audience knows that too. But I do think it's good to call it out and say, we are human beings. We are going to gravitate toward the things that are destructive. You guys remember children of Israel, they get released from Egypt. They're headed to the promised land and time after time, they find themselves back to the destructive behaviors that they used to have in Egypt. Just because it was comfortable, because they were used to that. And I'm saying that's what we do. That's what happens. Wow. And so when people come to us with those kinds of things, we try not to be condemning to them. We try to encourage them. And at the same time, we say, here are some better things that you can do instead of that will help you.
Yeah, so we picked up more. We definitely went outside more. I know you were saying, what could you do during the pandemic that you did before? So things like, going outside. We started cycling. We played golf more. We took family walks every day. We were taking 2 or 3 family walks.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a must. We had to, and they were nice long walks.
Like an hour.
Yeah, we took an hour.
Yeah.
And we just walked and talked as a family. And that actually brought us closer together. You know, after our 2 months of trying to figure things out, we kind of, things got better when we began to do things like that together. We never had family worship every night.
Right.
But during the pandemic, we started family worship every night. Now, we had family worship every week, but we didn't have it every night. And so for our kids to then now look forward to family worship, they would say, hey, are we having family worship tonight? When we're going to have it? Call us in for family worship. It was like, wow, our teenagers are excited about coming together to have family worship. So those are things that we had to do in order to cope that actually helped our family get closer rather than, and I know some things we did that we would not have done before, like allow our kids to just watch TV and play video games. Like, I mean, we were not about that thing, but now, and it's like, now it's hard to go back because we have allowed that. But I mean, it really did help them get through even school. Like my son, I'd go in to see how he's doing. He'd have the teacher on the screen. He'd have a chess board up here. He'd have basketball down at the bottom left. And he's texting his friends. And I'm like, okay, he's getting A's, so I'm not going to say anything as long as his grades stay. But I normally would have had a problem with that. But I knew, okay, even the kids need a way to cope. If he needs to be playing chess and watching basketball while he's listening to his history class, hey, that's not so bad.
Right.
But again, like you said, I mean, there were things that we did that we would not have done. But I think those were, again, ways to get through it. And yeah.
One more thing. We try to help people to see the bright side of things. So obviously every dark cloud has a silver lining. I think the silver lining from the pandemic was that most of us were going at such a frenetic pace, which is why we weren't having family worship every night.
Right.
It's because our schedules all don't align together. You have this child has drums lessons. That child has gymnastics. I'm taking one over here. Abel's taking one over there. Yeah. We eat. We don't eat together. We eat at separate times. All of a sudden we can eat together. All of a sudden we can have family worship every night. It was like the frenetic pace of life had slowed down just a bit. And it feels bad, but it feels like, I feel guilty saying this. The only way we could actually do it was in a pandemic. It took a pandemic to get us to stop to have family time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I said, use that. This is an opportunity to use that to your advantage and spend some time with your family. Get to know your teenage children that you don't know normally because now you're in the house together. And I think people started looking at it as an opportunity to be able to say, life is not so busy anymore. Maybe we can rest. Maybe we can come aside together. Maybe we can get to know each other a little bit better. I think that change of perspective helped a lot of our people that we were talking to be able to utilize the pandemic
and
for all it was worth.
Several of those families moved closer to their families.
Right.
Several of them moved.
That's
we have
true.
friends that actually said, you know what? We decided we want to be closer to family right now. And they upped and moved.
Because everything's virtual anyway. So they're like, well, I'm moving to Georgia.
They took their jobs. I mean, they kept their jobs and they moved. And I was like, wow, that's how they coped.
Yep.
They needed to be closer to family because it's like, it made you realize you could die today.
Yeah.
Like your life could
never
be taken
see your family members
right?
again.
Real. Yep.
So, those are all good things that came out of it when while we were trying to cope.
Could I just say
I
that
like the things you said. Powerful. Go ahead, Pastor.
The first 4-5 months, we weren't allowed to go anywhere. You can't travel out of your town. You can't travel 3-4 miles. Everybody has to sit inside. So what we were encouraging families to do was to focus on those positive things and put like a boundary around difficult conversations, difficult decisions that you have to make. Put a boundary around it. Don't talk, don't talk about it. Just protect this and save your relationship by just focusing on positive things that you're happy to do, rather than making decisions and discussing those difficult issues or topics.
So let me ask this question. So,
go ahead,
Dr. Lawrence. From an international, we have some folks who are looking at us globally. What was there, family ministries in the UK and family ministries in America pretty much maybe on the same track, as America has been very, influential around the world. But are there any unique things that you saw in the pandemic that international families did, and as you were looking around the world, kind of seeing around the world, that you say, "Wow, we don't have to deal with that here in the UK." Were there any differences that you kind of identified?
I didn't see any difference. Especially looking at United States. I think we share similar values, and the difficult part was we couldn't move. We couldn't go anywhere. I think you guys were able to move around. You guys could go to places, but here you couldn't leave. I live in Watford, which is about 20 miles east to Heathrow Airport. You couldn't travel. You couldn't leave your house. You had to travel within, I think, 5 or 6 miles. You couldn't go. And you have to prove, if you go into the supermarket, you have to make sure you go to the supermarket. You couldn't go anywhere else. You couldn't go to anybody else's house. It was that bad. And so, but I don't see any difference. I don't think there was any difference. But looking at other places, I think people were, still following the usual things and still doing what they were doing, but because they didn't believe that the COVID was real. They didn't believe COVID was real until they saw the mass graves and deaths taking place.
That's crazy.
That is something else. I mean, this pandemic has truly just helped a lot of people to see things from a different perspective. And I like, what was said. I mean, the pandemic actually, in some cases, it forced the family to come together, right? Not only in the space, but also to kind of share the experience. In fact, when we talk about stress, one of the signs of a strong family is when the family deals with stress effectively, or these different stressors effectively. So we definitely saw that in some cases during this pandemic. But I want to ask, as far as this family structure now, the interaction, and we talked a little bit about that, how we kind of interacted a little more intimately with the different members of the family. But how has it kind of changed some of the family dynamics, or has it? Dealing with, and I think you brought it out a little bit, dealing with your children, your teenagers, and so forth. Do you see some of that still happening now? Has this pandemic kind of changed some of those family dynamics? And we'll start off with
before we go there. Let's
to that question.
The reason.
We're gonna be right back with our guest in just a moment. We want them to have a chance to chew on that question, but we want to take just a quick opportunity to reset. We want to thank you. If you are just joining us for Pastors Roundtable today, we thank you for joining us. We've got about half an hour left. We want you to take this opportunity. If you have not shared this stream already, we want you to go ahead and share the stream. Roger, tell them about what's going on down below here in that little ticker.
At the bottom there, we want you to know that you need to subscribe and share. We want you to like. The more we do, the more people get an opportunity to get this content. We're about 500 in our number of folks who are sharing with us on YouTube. We want you to jump on over to YouTube and subscribe at YouTube. We want you to also remember to share this on Facebook. We would like to get to 100 shares. So we just ask you to hit that share button and share, hit that share button and share, hit that share button and share.
Hey, and listen, there have been a time or two where some of you you've been enjoying Pastors Roundtable. You've been seeing things that have been enriching your experience and your lives, and you've been edified by it. And some of you have actually taken the initiative to email us or to message us and say, hey, we'd like you to discuss this topic or that topic. Some of you have even suggested guests. We want to encourage you to do that. We invite you to do that. If you have a topic, if you have a guest that you'd like to see us bring on the roundtable, Go ahead and message us either on the Facebook. You can drop us a message even in the YouTube chat. Feel free to do that. Go over to the website. On the website, you can contact us directly through email. You can. We just want to make sure that you are encouraged.
That's right.
To do that, so that we can help keep ministry in your neck of the woods.
And let me say this, Pastor Paul. It's important that you do that now. You know, we have a couple more weeks left for this season, and we'll tell you about that as we go forward. So it's important. If you have a topic that's just burning, if you have some guests, some people that you like to see on, put that in those different areas so that we can talk about that. And because you're a part of this thing, you've been with us from the very beginning. And we want to make sure that we grow together. So that's just going to be something that we're looking forward for you to do. Absolutely. Hey, I like this music anthem that you put on, man.
I see somebody else saying that there, yeah. So listen, Dr. Henry, we kind of interrupted your question.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you a chance once we get back with our guest to go ahead and to reposit that. Let's go back and join our guest. If you are just joining us, we want to welcome back John and April Nixon, as well as Dr. Augustus Lawrence. They are family ministry experts, as it were. John and April, family coaches, marriage counseling coaches. Dr. Augustus Lawrence, all the way from London, England. We are grateful to have you both, I can't say both, have you all with us today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we've really appreciated your contribution up to this point. We're going to let Dr. Henry throw that question at you again so that our audience knows where we're going with this next question. So, Dr. Henry, it's yours, Doc.
All right. Well, listen, we're talking about families in a pandemic. We know that this pandemic has just changed a lot of things. It changed our perspective. Dealing with the family structure, or how we interact with each other. Has this pandemic changed the family structure in a way, how we interact with each other? And then there is another side to the question, and that is with family stability. You know, this consistency, dealing with different, habits that we have or activities. Has the pandemic changed that as well? And we'll throw that question out. I think it was Dr. Lawrence that wanted to answer that question first. I can't remember the.
Well, thank you, Dion. What has changed? I'm beginning to see that people are beginning now to understand that it is important to listen to your children, to talk, to feel that it's okay to listen without questioning your children, to listen without being critical about them, what they do, what they say, and just understand that it is important to just listen to what they're saying, because inside of them there's so much they want to share. So I'm beginning to see that is changing. As far as I'm concerned, it's beginning to see that is changing. The other thing I'm seeing that is changing is that people are beginning to understand that kindness, being kind to people, is important, because today you see them, tomorrow you might not see them. So people are beginning to share. I'm beginning to see on a very large scale, people are sharing food, sharing ideas, sharing ways of doing things. So, and it's all around, not just in the church, in the community. People are sharing.
Right.
People are beginning to be more kind, or kinder, as you may say.
Right.
So it's kindness and expressing the skill of listening to one another and understanding that it is okay to listen without questioning your children.
Wow. I like that. And before we go to John and April, that's a powerful point, because during the height of the early days of the pandemic, I recognize that even on the broadcast, I think it was NBC or so, they put a special program in there talking about kids, listening to your kids, and talking about kids and how they feel during the pandemic. And and so this was going on. I think as a result, especially the focused shows there, as a result of the pandemic. And I think that they were saying the same thing that you're saying. I think we got to listen to what our children are going through, because we're all a part of this thing together. And another thing too, that this pandemic, you kind of brought it out, and John and April kind of brought it out when they talked about the family meeting. And that is that the family, they're going through this crisis together. And one of the strengths of a family, of a strong family, is how they deal with a crisis. And that meeting that John and April had, and just listening to your kids, it kind of highlights the important point that when a family comes together, they will deal with a pandemic, a stressor better because they're coming together as a family. John and April?
Yes. What I noticed is on the first day of school, parents were really excited about getting their kids back in school.
You're talking about this week?
This week.
Yeah,
we started back Tuesday. I've never seen
such excitement on dropping their kids.
We did not open those doors fast enough. Okay. Wow. I had so many, especially moms. There was a lot of mom guilt. Mom guilt is a thing. It's actually a big thing, especially when you are either a first-time mom or, well, actually, it doesn't matter. You have mom guilt, and it stays with you until they're teenagers. I mean, I still have it sometimes, and I had it during this pandemic. And a lot of moms and friends of mine who are mothers called me for advice because, they were feeling guilty about their kids not being able to be involved in sports or in certain educational activities, and that they basically lost a year.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of kids lost a year.
A lot of them are behind now in their studies.
A lot of them
and
are
had
behind.
to spend the summer, in these summer programs to help them to relearn the stuff that they lost during the pandemic because it's so hard in so many circumstances to do online school. And you'd be surprised at how many moms felt guilty about that as if they could have done something about it.
Right. And you feel guilty. So it was a lot of that. I think now that we're back in person, school, a lot of families are very happy about that because they see their kids smiling again and happy about being with friends and teachers and things like that. So
I was going to say, I noticed something specifically from our church family that I think this has been a thing for a long time. Actually, I want to say this. The pandemic has brought out things that have already been a thing for a long time that we as a church have been slow to recognize.
Yeah.
So for instance, I think, so this isn't the thing I'm talking about, but I'm just giving an example. I think that the world has been sort of in the digital space for a long time, but we as churches have been, we're supposed to be trying to reach them, and we're not reaching them where they are. The pandemic made all of us realize, wait a minute, we should be using technology, which has always been a thing. Well, similarly, I think the definition of family has expanded and grown. I think the family structure is different today in that there are a lot of, and I'll tell you how it manifested at Tacoma Park. There are a lot of people at our church who are single and live alone. Right. And we were trying to figure out, how do we make sure that those people feel like they're still part of this family in this process? And what I noticed was the definition of family actually became church family. It wasn't just, my kids that live however many miles away from me because I live alone. Their family actually became their church members. And sometimes we had church members that would go by a person's house to just sit in the driveway and say hi to them just so they could see another face. We couldn't come inside or anything like that. We had all kinds of stuff like that. During communion, when we had our foot washing, we would encourage families to foot wash together because they were all doing this at home. And we said, if you live alone, you can FaceTime one of your friends or someone else from church who is also living alone, and you guys can pray together while your feet are in the basin. And you don't think about that. Here's a person who lives by themselves that now is actually by themselves. When April and I are locked down, we've got our whole family. There's four of us. We're all in the same place. But a person that's living alone doesn't have that. They were lonely beyond belief in a totally different way. And we began, I think, as people that had a house full of people, thinking about our people who lived alone very differently. They really became family during that time. So I think the family structure sort of expanded and grew a little bit in a positive way. You know what I'm saying?
True.
Good. Yeah. Good stuff. I almost I kind of want to go back, April, to something you were saying about the mom guilt and what have you, and the kids being behind. My wife and I were having that exact conversation this morning on the way to church.
Wow.
In a Sabbath kind of way. And as far as we're talking about coping skills, and everybody can't cope like I can cope in terms of my mind and how I process that. But my question to her when she said that about they're behind, my question was, they're behind who? Everybody was at home. Who were they behind? All around the world, people were out of school and weren't going to class and whatnot. So, and that was my way of kind of trying to figure out how would you cope with that kind of a guilt that my kids are behind a year now. Well, everybody is behind a year now. So, and really, maybe you're not that behind. You're the same place everybody else is.
Right. Well, it's funny you say that because a friend that called me who was really distraught about her, I think he's like 4. And she was talking about how he's going to be behind. And he said, no. I said, listen, he is going to learn everything that he's supposed to learn in order to go to the next grade. Right. I mean, he is going to, unless he has specific problems where, he needs help, he's going to be fine. And I had to just calm her down and say, put on those ABC videos on Sesame Street and he will learn his ABCs. He's going to get those 1, 2, 3s, I said, give him the magnets on the refrigerator to spell his name, those little things. I said, you do those little things, he will be fine. So I kind of had to give that same advice that you just said. You felt like he behind who? Kind of like that,
Sure.
It's okay, everybody. And so that's what I had to say to her, because she was really having a hard time thinking that because he was not able to be in school, he was going to be behind. But that's a good point. Behind with everybody else.
That became a national issue here, John and April. Children being behind. That has been a stressor for a lot of parents. Yeah. My children are going to be behind. Behind what? Behind who? So my thing is, what I say to parents is, listen, what was the difference? Here's how I got through with it. What was the difference between Joseph and his brothers? What was the difference? Where are you going with that, Pastor? So what was the difference between Joseph and his brothers? They grew up in the same home, same parents, but he was different. They said, what do you mean? I said, he was different because his father spent a lot of time with him, Joseph, and told him a lot of life stories, his experiences in life. Pastor, do you mean I should tell my children my life experiences? Well, you choose what to say to them. There's no such thing as time lost. Your time with the children is the best form of education. You can tell them about life. You've graduated from the University of Life. You have a degree in hard work. You have a degree in
preacher.
in hard work, degree in values, in telling the truth, how to tell the truth, a value in respecting people. Those are all lessons you can teach your children. There's no such thing as left behind.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. Your children will have learned, continue to learn. I said to them, look, I started going to school when I was 9. I didn't go to kindergarten. I didn't go to nursery. I started in first grade.
Right.
Yes, I started in the first grade. So there is no such thing as left behind. Your children will learn, and they have learned, and will continue to learn.
Listen, I have to just say this. You picked the wrong subject to talk about, but so you might have to stop me. No, but seriously, as a middle school teacher, a lot of parents are like, "Oh my goodness, their grades during the pandemic time, their grades went down," and I had to tell parents this too. When you graduate from 8th grade, and you guys can answer this question, do you ever see your middle school grades again?
Absolutely not.
No, you never see them again. When you graduate, that's it. Because really, and I had to say, yes, middle school is for the arithmetic and reading and writing and all those things. Yes, that's important. But what I am trying to get parents to understand and what they need in order to go from middle school on is, are they kind? Are they loving to people? Are they respectful? Do they have the strategies to be able to figure things out and to be able to problem solve? Those are the things that are going to get you through high school onto college when you go to something that you really want to do. So, it really is about, and like you said, Pastor Gus, that is so true. It's like, those skills, being able to, know those stories, life stories, how do you deal with life? Those types of things is what really is more important, really, than those other things. You're gonna be okay.
One more thing that I say to parents to help them as well is kids are resilient. And when you look back over the history of the world, some of the greatest generations in the world are the ones that dealt with crazy things like this.
Yeah.
So I think when we grow up and we look back, I think our kids, the kids of the pandemic, the COVID kids, they're going to end up being great people in life later on, hopefully because they learned something during this difficult time that was going to make them stronger. These things actually help to toughen our kids up and make it so they can get through things that a normal person might not be able to. Because, you know, you think about your grandfather that lived through the Depression. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That guy, your grandfather was dope, man. He was like the greatest guy around because he lived through a time where they had nothing. And they had to save everything. Now, he may have some crazy saving practices. Maybe he saves the little thin piece of soap and puts it all together and makes it one big bar of soap like my grandfather used to do. That's because he grew up in the Depression. You know what I'm saying?
Put money in shoe boxes and you have piles of shoe boxes under
Correct.
the bed with money.
Correct.
Yes,
but I'm just saying, so our kids, I think, are going to be great someday, possibly because they went through this difficult time. So in some ways, I want parents to know it's possible that this is a good thing for our children to have lived through. We don't wish these things on our kids, obviously. We want them to have a normal life and all that kind of stuff. And it feels really bad that they missed a whole year of basketball. Our son John loves basketball, and he was on the team in 8th grade, and then 9th grade, nothing, because there was no basketball. And that makes you feel bad because, you know, I played basketball in high school, and, you know, I want my son to be able to do the same thing. But honestly, that's not the worst thing in the world that could have happened to him. You know what I'm saying?
John,
so some of these things I think are not really hardships.
One day, John, your grandkids are going to come to each other and they're going to open a box and they're going to say, these are the gloves that grandma used to make granddad wear when he
to pump the gas. You know what I'm saying? Here's grandpa's mask. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the mask. Hey, listen.
But listen, you raised something. I want to ask this question. You raised something when you talked about the changing of the family structure. You talked about the inclusion of the church members coming together, making families looking differently. I want to just shift the lens a little bit to the world in changing the family structure, the same-sex agenda, which actually I think took a foothold because now everything was on television, everything was on the screen, and that agenda was seen 24/7 in pretty much everything that we were watching. How does that affect the family? That inclusion. I don't want to seem as if I'm homophobic or anything, but I want us as Christians to be very clear on what when we look at the family. We are ministering to a world. When we look at a family that comes to us that is so different than what we normally see, how is that adding to situations? Is that how would you express that to us to minister to those folks, to those families, I should say?
And with 8 minutes left,
relevant and real, baby. Relevant and real.
I would say, you know, whoever you are, whatever family structure you have, I think what God requires of us is to be ministers of grace, of mercy, of kindness, of compassion to anybody and to everybody. Doesn't matter who you are. I think that is the framework in which we ought to work with people.
I think I agree with you, Pastor Gus. I would say that we do have our standards and our beliefs when it comes to what we believe God created in the beginning with husband and wife. But I do think that some of these other things help to push us to a place that says, even if I don't necessarily agree with someone's definition of this, that, or the other, my responsibility is to treat them with love and kindness and respect. And if that is the result, if it's making us into better Christians, that's actually a good thing. If it's helping us to see that our perspective, though it may be what we believe is from the Lord, doesn't give us the right or the ability or the excuse to be able to be judgmental or anything like that at this point. What I'm hoping is that it would make us more loving and more open to every kind of person, which the church is supposed to be. So in that way, I take the good from that aspect of it and say, hopefully that's making us better in that regard. Was that good, Paul, Anselm?
Yeah, I like
take
it.
up the whole 8 minutes.
That was that's we could spend a whole lot of time there because it's a real and a relevant issue.
Yeah.
And I thank you, Roger, for
even within some of our families, we do have context of family members who have made those choices. And here, as you're talking about the pandemic and we're talking about connecting with family, how do I, because I believe one way, do I really reach out to that side of my family? How do I look at that? Some people feel that, it's in the family now, so I gotta love them, but it is stressful, especially as we are dealing with concepts that are philosophically foreign to us as Christians.
Yeah, and a lot of that is happening in school, in elementary school, and so you have a lot of questioning going on there as well.
And I think it gives us better equipment to be able to talk to our kids about things like that because the world is the way that it is, and our kids can handle understanding this is how things are now. And I think it's important for us not to shield them from it, to let them know.
I don't think our kids should grow up and say our parents never talked about that, or our church. Let me say that our church never talked about that because, our church never talked about sex growing up.
That's true.
They didn't. They didn't talk about that, and if they did talk about it, it was just don't do it. There was never really any good
sort of biblical
lessons from the church, from the pulpit, or even in Sabbath school with the young people about that. So I think we should change that in our church with all the other things now that we have.
That's a great segue, John and April. Because you're actually planning on doing something like that in the very near future, I heard.
We are actually, you're right. Yes. That's a good point. So if you don't mind, I'll put this up on the screen. April and I have this thing called How to Fire Up Your Sex Life.
What?
And it may sound like a risque kind of title. It's not as risque as you think.
Oh my goodness.
This is for people
We're going to get censored.
This is for people who are already married and who want to have a deeper level of intimacy. We're going to be talking about some things here. We actually did one of these before. That's why we're calling this part 2. You can see in the upper left-hand corner. And in this part 2, we're going to be talking about ways that you can increase your
intimacy.
Thank you. Intimacy in your relationship. And you can just register it's free, completely free, Monday, August 30th, 8 p.m. Register at sexlife.justjohnandapril.com. And we'd love to see you there. Yeah, I think part of the reason we're doing that, as you said, Ans, is basically this is something we don't talk about. And it's something we should be comfortable talking about because the Bible talks about it. And that's what we're going to do. Ours is extremely biblical.
I mean, the Bible has a whole book.
Yeah. Yes.
That kind of focuses on that intimacy thing.
Exactly.
Anyway.
All right. Well, listen, before we jump into that last question, I know we've got a few minutes left, just about a couple of minutes and a half. I wanted to go back again, and I'm getting stuck on that parenting and the guilt thing. And all of us here are pastors or are close to, a pastor's wife, April. We've dealt with parents who have come and sat in our office. And I would dare say that there are very few parents who have ever come and sat in my office or any of our offices who have come with this complaint. Pastor, I feel so bad that I've just spent so much time with my kids.
Wow.
That's not what we hear. We don't hear that. That's not what they say.
Right.
Almost every time where it's an issue with their children, it's, I wish I had spent more time. If I could go back and do it again, I would spend more time. God has given parents this opportunity now. In a way like never before. And so don't run from that. Embrace it and use it and make it a way to cope with some of the stressors that have come, so that particular stressor, that guilt stressor down the road is something that you can avoid by having, it doesn't have to be quantity time, but just make sure that it's quality time that you are spending with your kids right now.
Wow. Listen, families in a pandemic. I mean, you all have shared a lot of nuggets that I think are so important, shared experiences that resonate with a lot of our viewers on dealing with this pandemic. And, you know, we're not even out of it yet, right? I mean, we're now just kind of learning how to move a little more effectively, I think. I guess in some cases, except, you know, Anselm, where we're from, how to move more effectively, you know, throughout the pandemic. But I want to ask you this question, our final question. What's the one thing that you want to say to our viewers that can help them and their family just have hope throughout this pandemic? What's the one thing? What's that one thing that you want our viewers to know that will kind of help us through this pandemic, that will kind of encourage us as we go through this pandemic? We'll start with Dr. Lawrence. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to give one verse of scripture, and it's from Nehemiah 4 and verse 14. He says, don't be afraid of the enemy. We know what the enemy wants to do. John 10, verse 10, he wants to steal, kill, and destroy. But here is Nehemiah saying, don't be afraid of the enemy. But instead, he says, remember the Lord, who is great and gracious. And he says, fight for your brothers, fight for your sons, fight for your daughters, fight for your wives, and fight for your homes. We must fight. Fight for your homes, fight for your children, fight for your husband, fight for your wives, fight for your family.
Wow, I love it. Fight for your family.
It's life is a battle, you know, and especially your family, he seeks to destroy. And so we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Fight in the power of the Lord. It says fight. And remember the Lord is on your side.
Yeah.
Fight. The only place you can fight, you see, the thing is, the devil is firing. He's firing at our children. He's firing and shooting at them. And we're sitting down like dead dogs. We need to stand with them in the firing line, fight with them on our knees in prayer. That's the only weapon we have. So we intercede just like what Job did. He interceded for his children by doing intercessory prayer. So you fight for your sons, fight for your daughters. Doesn't matter what it is. There is no battle that the Lord cannot fight for you. So we fight for our children. Don't get discouraged. This depression, they may go through depression, discouragement, failure. Doesn't matter what it is. Fight for your children on your knees.
I love it.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Well, I always say, this too shall pass.
That's true.
And it will. And, you know, all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. So I would say to encourage families is to love, you know, love each other and get that relationship with the Lord right, you know, because when we do, the Bible says all things will work together for good.
And one more thing I would say, the Bible talks about redeeming the time. I look at the year and a half that we had at home as a time that we were able to redeem with each other as a family. We got to know our teenage children in a way that I'm not sure would have been possible otherwise. Because we were so intent on making sure they had all the extracurriculars they need and all the other stuff in life. So we're constantly basically chauffeuring them here and there so they don't miss out on anything. Not realizing just their life was going by. We weren't even noticing. I mean, they're growing up. Their minds are developing. We were having conversations with them during this last year and a half. I got to know my kids in a way. Well, I've always loved them, but man, these guys, my son and daughter, they are very thoughtful, intelligent kids. They have a lot to say about the world and what's going on. Things I didn't have time to even listen to before. I feel like the Lord blessed us with that. He helped to redeem the time with our children. That's encouraging. That's hope. That's something to hope for. That's a good thing. Because listen, they're going to be gone in like a millisecond. They're going to be out of the house, man. So I praise the Lord for it. Even though it was a terrible time, I'm glad we had that opportunity to be able to get to know them in that way.
And that encourages us to keep it going.
Yes.
So having that time lets us know we don't want to lose it.
Yes.
So we are trying to keep all of those great things that came from this to keep that thing going.
Yeah.
So keep those positive things going.
Yeah. I agree. Well said, man.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I think back at the beginning of the pandemic, and on Sabbath afternoon, I was walking with my family, and I was thinking back. I said, listen, before the pandemic, did we have time on the Sabbath afternoon to really walk with our family? I mean, you got to go back to church, you got to do all that stuff. So just that family time that we had. Thank you so much. Just enjoyed your wisdom, and just the words that you said to us really encouraged us. Both of you, Dr. Lawrence, all the way from England, man. Listen, hey, what time is it over there now? You must be about 11 o'clock, right?
10:34.
10:34. Wow. Okay. So we just appreciate you. Appreciate you so much.
Sabbath's been over for you, man.
We extend the Sabbath for you.
That's right. I saw one of the comments just now. I wanted to mention something if I could. Somebody looked like Titus Boyce was saying he wanted to try to get to that site and he can't reach it on his end. I think we typed it in wrong in the chat. We forgot the dot. It's sexlife.justjohnandapril.com. Oh, he says he got it. Okay. Well.
Excellent. Yeah, he's one that already told me that's a good friend of mine, Titus Boyce. His sex life is already fired up, so I guess he's trying to get it more fired up.
I saw that.
He's trying to get it more fired up.
My soul.
You gotta watch.
Listen, we are just so.
There's another show, Pastor Wade. I hate to cut you. Another show that we should do called The COVID Baby.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah. Y'all have to come back and join us for that one.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. In the next, I think the next 2 months, then we will begin to see that the increase in birth rates they're saying. So we look forward to that. Listen, to our guests, John, April, the relationship coaches. We're just thankful that you were able to come and be with us today, Dr. Lawrence. We thank you so much for giving up your evening to be with us.
Anytime.
Be careful what you say now.
We just thank you for both of you.
We thank you for both of you for being here. You have really encouraged my heart and my soul when it talks about the family and the impact that family ministry has not only to the Christian church, but to the individual member who sits in the pew. And those are the people that we minister to here on the Pastors Roundtable.
Absolutely. All right. Are we telling everybody what's on the table for next week, or are we holding that?
Oh, we could tell them next week. We are just so excited. I'm sorry, I should have moved right into that. Next week, we're excited to share another ministry that our church is well known for, our community service ministry. As many of you know, we have had there was an earthquake in Haiti. And our community service ministry, not only here in the North American Division, but also in the country of the Republic of Haiti, have mobilized and are helping the folks there. And so we will have with us the executive director for the Adventist Community Service and Disaster Response with us. And then we will also have a pastor from a local church who was on boots on the ground when it came to sharing ministry during the pandemic. So they're going to be with us next week as we highlight community service. I just want to say it's not the Dorcas ministry that we're used to. It's not your mom and pop ministry that we used to do. You want to be a part here and hear some ideas, celebrate what's doing, and maybe even start that going on at your local church. So you want to be here with us next week.
Okay. Hey, just before, John, April, I thought there was one other thing that you guys were going to share with us. Did we get everything?
There is another thing. I just didn't know we had time. You were talking about time, so I just wanted to present the most important one.
While they're here, grab them. And Doc, Lawrence, we want you to share too. Hold on. Let me get you up there. Boom. There we go.
So we have this free intimacy assessment that a person can take. at yourtotalintimacy.com. So
Couples
if you're
can take
couples
separately.
That's right. If you're married in a relationship and you want to know what is our level of intimacy, you each would take this, and it gives you basically a score based on the 4 pillars of what we call total intimacy. As we said, it starts way before the bedroom. So anyway, this is it, yourtotalintimacy.com. You can take a free intimacy assessment and kind of gauge where you are as a couple. And it'll at least start a conversation with you about where you think you are and where your spouse might think he or she is. Anyway, so that was it. That's the other thing we're going to get into.
Okay, awesome. Listen, we talk about being relevant, resourced, and real. So we want to make sure that we get as many resources out there as well. Dr. Lawrence, if there's anything that you'd like to share, I know a lot of our audience is on this side of the pond, but we got people all over the place. If there's anything that you'd like to share that you've got coming up that might be a resource for families as they're trying to move ahead and move up and be everything that God has intended them to be.
Well, the only thing I want to say on this platform now, this evening, is to say I did a confession to my son, because I'm from a background where we had to study to get to where we wanted to be. My mother was never educated, doesn't know anything about reading or writing, but she sent us to school. So I was a little bit hard on him because he was born in this country, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. So I said some harsh things to him. So I during this pandemic, I confessed to him and asked for his forgiveness. And I asked him, I said, look, I have said some negative things to you, things that may have impacted you. I want you to forgive me for my error. And I want you to know that henceforth, any word that will come from my mouth will be positive words of faith.
Wow.
So I want to encourage parents on this platform today to know that in Jesus' name, they can cancel out every negative word that they have planted in the lives of their children, or perhaps somebody else planted in the lives of the children. They can cancel it out and trust God for great things to happen to their children. I want to offer them the word. God can turn it around. God can change darkness to light, crooked things He can make straight. In whose life? In the lives of your children, in the life of your husband, in the life of your spouse.
Yes.
That's what I want to say today.
Got to do it again.
Amen.
It's a good word, man.
Amen.
He's a preacher.
So we've been seeing some chats. They're asking about singleness and those who are single. We just want you to know we are planning a show that is geared for single people. So hold on. Today we wanted to deal with the family as a whole. We are having a show in a couple of weeks dealing with parenting, and then we will be bringing on the show in the beginning of next season on singleness. So just hold on a little bit. We hear your cries. We haven't forgotten our singles. We're going to do something special. We're going to spend a whole show on singles.
All right.
So with that said, we're going to put all those links in our show notes on the website, theprt.live. We have a brand new website URL, theprt.live, and you will get to our website. And we're just excited about what God is doing in your lives, in the lives of our guests, in the lives of those who view us. Because here at the Pastors Roundtable, we are very excited to partner with you to make ministry relevant,
resourced,
and real. God bless.
Take care, everybody.
All right. God bless. See you next week.